It was another night with yet another shooting in Portland. And with this, police estimate there have now been 105 shootings and 6 gun-related homicides for January. We do want to show you a graph here so you can see the rise in shootings last year when there were 893 compared to 393 the year before.
And tonight, for the first time, 4 law enforcement leaders who work in the suburbs around Portland share their concerns with what they believe is leading the public to lose faith in the system. Our Dan Tilkin joins us with this Coin 6 special report. And Dan, they're concerned that this violence will spread.
Yeah, few in law enforcement outside of Portland have been willing to publicly criticize what is happening in the city. There were 54 murders in Portland last year, the most in 25 years. How to stop it and how to deal with violence from protests are part of an ideological battle playing out in Oregon on multiple levels.
In some ways, I'm seeing a tale of two cities. I'm seeing Portland and I'm seeing everybody else.
The district attorney of Washington County, as well as the sheriff.
I just think the numbers speak for themselves.
Plus the new DA in Clackamas County.
Certainly something's not working, and it's of great concern to all of us.
And the DA who recently retired.
We cannot have a civilized society if we do not have our citizens fundamentally feel safe.
All are concerned about what they see in Portland. The most vocal is John Foote, who spent a decade prosecuting cases in Multnomah County before leading the office in Clackamas County. Foote has also been a leading advocate of Measure 11, Oregon's 27-year-old tough sentencing law, which drastically cut a skyrocketing crime rate in the 80s and 90s. Foote's concern is aimed largely at one man.
The current DA in Multnomah County, who has no real-life experience doing any of this, comes in with his ideology as if none of that was right. None of his ideas are time-tested anywhere and have been shown to work. And the people that are going to suffer are the people who live in Multnomah County.
He's talking about Mike Schmidt, who took over the Multnomah County DA's office in August after running on a platform of sentencing reform.
He's known in criminal justice circles in this state as somebody who has fought any kind of criminal justice reform. He's advocated for tougher and tougher sentences. That's not what this community called for. That's not what I ran on. So, I respect DA Foote. I worked with him for years when I was at the commission. He's done a lot of great things for this state, asking for additional research. He's been an advocate for changing our definition of recidivism, which I think was a huge plus. But we don't see eye to eye on policy things.
When Schmidt became DA, he announced his office would likely not prosecute most people arrested at protests unless someone was hurt or property was damaged. Our exclusive Coin 6 database shows Schmidt's office has not prosecuted nearly 92% of people arrested since protests began in May.
This current DA in Multnomah County thinks what's politically correct is all that matters.
Do you blame the ongoing violence on him?
No, I blame him for not doing anything about it.
I've clearly been addressing the ongoing violence. So not doing anything about it is just inaccurate. And anybody can look at the cases that we're making. And I also disagree with his contention that the policy isn't based on research or evidence of what works. I mean, the cases and where we drew the line was saying we're going to focus our resources when people are hurting other people, when they're damaging storefronts. That's who we're going to protest, or that's who we're going to prosecute. We're not going to prosecute people who happen to be at a demonstration or a protest who are saying that they don't think the criminal justice system is serving them, and then they don't leave fast enough.
In early January, the Oregon District Attorneys Association voted overwhelmingly to support keeping Measure 11. That's after Schmidt and 2 other DAs argued judges should have more discretion. Meanwhile, Democrats, who control the state legislature, have been chipping away at Measure 11, with more efforts planned in favor of rehabilitation programs and saving money on prisons. The backdrop for it all are calls for social and criminal justice reform and the Black Lives Matter movement, and infiltration of those protests by anarchists and Antifa, and the confrontations with far-right groups such as Patriot Prayer and the Proud Boys. Then add in the pandemic and hundreds of shootings in Portland, many of which have occurred while Portland police have been stretched thin by the protests.
When you look to the east, what alarms you?
Well, specifically the homicide numbers, which I would characterize as an epidemic.
You have to support the public safety system with necessary resources in order for it to work. And if you start taking money away without having a strategy behind that, then it's going to have unintended consequences. And a good example of that is the gun violence reduction team in Portland. By taking money away from that, you can almost see a direct relation to an increase in shootings and an increase in homicides.
Garrett, Barton, and Wentworth won't criticize particular leaders in Portland. All call for a synergy between police, mental health, and social services.
I have a real concern that on both sides of the aisle, what people are hearing is you can't trust the system at all, anywhere. Now, for me, in my realm, it's in the criminal justice system. And I think that does a damage to our community.
It's like we have amnesia. The lessons that we know we learned over those 40 years are now being treated as if they were wrong.
Do you think you've sent the wrong message at all to people about committing crime?
From the very beginning is that if you're damaging somebody's property, if you're hurting somebody, we're prosecuting those crimes. I ran on a campaign of talking about mass incarceration, talking about the overuse of the criminal justice system, talking about using jails as in lieu of addiction treatment and mental health. And I won with 77% of the vote. So I think Multnomah County is really on board with that message. So when I talk about prioritizing my office's resources toward the most violent crime, that's exactly what I've been doing.
For another example of this ideological split, we've learned the Multnomah County DA hired his own lobbyist to sway legislative opinion in Salem. His name is Aaron Knott, and he recently started the $180,000 a year job for Mike Schmidt. Knott will also work on policy changes within the DA's office. We're told this marks the first time a DA has split from the rest of the Oregon District Attorneys Association, which has its own lobbyist in Salem.
Well, no doubt Portland facing a crisis now. We have never seen anything like this, especially the nightly gun violence. Why have so many others been afraid to speak up until now?
We've been trying for a very long time to get people to speak up. One thing is it's bad form to criticize somebody else. The other real issue is here, people are afraid. We've seen protesters show up at people's homes. The mayor of Portland accosted in restaurants. They're afraid if they speak out, people will show up at their homes and threaten them.
Dan, thank you for putting this piece together. Really eye-opening.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I know you worked on this for quite some time. We appreciate it.